Good morning, good afternoon. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our 10Zig demo webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're located. Doesn't matter. We're so glad you're here. The name of our webcast, Safe and Sound, Securing Windows 10 IoT Thin Clients via Shell Launcher, Unified Write Filter, and much more. So are you safe and sound? We're going to find out. I am Michelle Pelusi. I manage the marketing for the United States for 10Zig Technology, and we are a leading thin and zero client hardware and software provider for cloud workspaces, virtual desktops. We cover everything and support everything you would need with respect to VDI, cloud, DaaS, and SaaS, you name it, we're here for you. I'm pleasantly and happily joined by a few of some of the best 10Zig faces around. Jason Hudson, he is our technical solutions architect. Say hi, Jason. Good morning. Well, actually, good afternoon.
Hi, everyone.
Good afternoon, right?
Yeah, good afternoon where I am, 4 p.m. Yeah.
Good to see you.
You too.
And Kevin Greenway, he is our Chief Technology Officer. He's been with 10Zig for many years. Two really great guys here. We're going to learn a lot today. So so happy that you joined us. Just a couple quick things we want to mention. No one wants to hear me talk all morning, so we'll get you off and running here in a second. You will find, hopefully, if you have any problems, let me know. Inside of the marketing area, you'll find some materials, our interactive product brochure, if you'd like to download that. It covers everything with respect to 10Zig, as well as any related spec sheets to the products that are going to be that we use to demonstrate for today's webcast. There's a spec sheet on a few of our leading thin and zero client hardware pieces in there, and our 10Zig Manager Overview, which is our centralized software management console program. I should mention that it comes at no cost. It's absolutely free. No limit on licenses and no subscriptions. So good marketing materials for you there. We're having 3 quick poll questions that will come in and out of the presentation. If you'd like to participate, it would be greatly appreciated. Always helps us gauge different perspectives, so help us out with that if you can. And guarantee you, if you ask questions during the webcast, just type them out for us, and if we have enough time, we'll get to them at the end. If not, I just want to assure you that I will get back to you with all the responses that are required. Finally, some fun stuff. We are going to be issuing a $200 Amazon gift card. Probably draw the winner tomorrow. You'll be hearing who won either tomorrow or Friday. So excited about that. And just wanted to let you know, in terms of follow-up, this entire broadcast, as well as the video portions themselves, will be uploaded onto our 10Zig YouTube channel, our 10Zig video gallery, which is on 10zig.com, and you'll find mentions and links to all of that on 10Zig social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, yeah, and we even do Instagram. One last thing I want to mention before I pass things over to Kevin to get things kicked off is, when you listen to the video demonstration portions of this webcast, I just want to encourage you to turn your volume up during those sections. I do that as well. It really helps for you to hear things clearly and strongly. So turn up your volume. Having said that, we have a lot to cover. We really got a great full hour here of demo presentations with Jason and Kevin. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Kevin.
Thanks, Michelle, and just like to extend the good morning and good afternoon to everybody, and thanks for everybody's participation in today's webinar. I'm certainly not going to steal the thunder here, so I'm just going to give a quick intro. I'm Kevin Greenway, CTO for 10Zig. So I'm, like Jason, based out of the UK and work with all the teams at 10Zig, including the UK operation here and also the team in Phoenix, Arizona in the US. And yeah, I think Jason, the content that Jason's put together today is very relevant to today, with securing Windows 10 IoT, with some of the popular tools that we integrate into the image and communicate to our customers. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Jason, and really look forward to this.
Okay, thanks very much, Kevin. Hi everyone, I hope you're well and thanks for joining us today. This demo will introduce you to Windows updates, working with the Unified Write Filter, or UWF, and how you can use it to protect and update your Tenzig Windows devices. We have 3 videos lined up for today. Video 1 will talk about controlling the UWF from the command line and via Tenzig's Uwf Wizard, and mention 2 different states involved when managing it. Video 2 will go a bit deeper and talk about UWF servicing mode, what it can do for your devices, and how outstanding Windows updates are applied in bulk when using this method. We'll also show you how to take inventory of hotfixes on your Tenzig endpoints and then download a hotfix, build a Tenzig manager package, and then deploy it. Finally, in our last video, we'll talk about security and how to create a secure custom shell for your Tenzig devices. We'll create a Tenzig Manager package again and follow the device as it goes from an open admin desktop to a fully locked down thin client user, running only a single application at starter. I'm Jason Hudson from Tenzig Technology and have over 30 years experience in the IT industry. I joined the company back in March 2021 after having a 10-year close working relationship with Tenzig as a retail infrastructure architect at Iceland Food UK. I'm a technical solutions architect and my role is focused on creation and improvement of Tenzig technical content such as videos, blogs, webcasts, and tech support guides. Just a quick background on Tenzig for those not aware. We're a solely focused thin and zero client vendor, meaning we understand all there is to know about graphics and audio remoting, from on-premises setups to more recent cloud-based deployments. We're headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, with our EMEA office in the UK. We have a long-standing partnership with Microsoft, offering mutual customers both on Linux and Windows-based endpoints for RDS deployments, and more recently based on Azure Virtual Desktop. Tenzig's approach is that we make our endpoints fit your environment and not the other way around. Tenzig is built on excellent customer service, and that's why customers buy from Tenzig time and time again, as you'll see from our testimonials. Like I said in my introduction, I had a 10-year working relationship with Tenzig as one of their customers, running both their thin and zero client devices in a fast-paced retail environment in over 800 sites across the UK. And I can tell you that their dedication to the customer is absolutely fantastic. And that's one of the reasons that I joined the company last year. Our current portfolio contains devices that fall into 3 categories: task worker, knowledge worker, and power worker. The 4600Q and 7700Q land in the task worker category, typically supporting office applications, light media, and Teams call use. The 6000Q handles everything that a task worker can do and more, and typically suits heavier multimedia use and a full Teams audio and video experience. And last but not least is the 6100 that comes under the Power Worker banner with its ability to run everything the previous categories offered, with the option to support 4x 4K displays running at 60 Hz. Looking at the diagram, you'll notice that all Tenzig devices mentioned provide multi-monitor support, as indicated by the numbers in the white box next to the model number. The Tenzig devices mentioned in the previous slide all support Windows 10 IoT, and as they run the latest client remoting applications, are perfectly matched to interface with your VDI desktops. They also come with a vast array of applications developed by Tenzig to give you maximum control of your out-of-box experience. Tenzig Zero clients are our most popular product with customers and deliver a powerful, secure, and easy to manage endpoint device for connection to virtual desktops. NOS is Tenzig's own customized Linux-based OS for VMware, Citrix, and now for AVD and Windows 365, all inside the NOS M device. Before we start the first of 3 videos, we have the first poll question for you, which we'd really like you to take part in. Can we have the first question, please, Michelle?
Absolutely. Let me get that started for us. Hopefully everybody can see this. Are you currently using Tenzig Thinner Zero clients? Yes, no, or planning for the future? Okay, looks like we're getting some responses coming through. Let me give everybody just a little bit of time here. Okay, that was fast. Close out and I will share the responses here. Oh, okay, wonderful. Looks like 62% of the attendees are already working with Tenzig Thinner Zero clients. 23% are not. And hey, 15% of you folks are planning for the future. So that's great feedback. Thanks, you appreciate it very much.
Okay, like we said, this is the first video that covers controlling the UWF from the command line and via Tenzig's Uwf Wizard, and mentions 2 different states involved when managing the UWF. So we'll just play this now for you. Hi, I'm Jason Hudson from Tenzig Technology, and today we're going to be looking at keeping your Tenzig Windows 10 thin clients securely updated, focusing in particular on Windows updates and Microsoft's Unified Write Filter, otherwise known as the UWF. We'll show you how to set up the UWF to be able to manage bulk updates using servicing mode, and also how to apply individual ones using methods to unlock the local drives for update and then locking them again after successful maintenance. We'll also talk about best practice scenarios for applying updates to your Tenzig Windows 10 devices, like we just mentioned, either in batch mode, where all outstanding updates are applied in one go, or if you want to deploy and install just a single update. This is where we'll run through the steps to make sure you're running your Windows updates the way you want to, giving you full control of what to apply and how and when to apply them. We'll also take you through a step-by-step guide and show you how to create your own installer inside Package Manager or within the Tenzig Manager console. That example will deploy a C# console executable that will put the device into Windows 10's secure kiosk mode, but we'll talk about that a bit later on. This is a deep dive into using the UWF from the command line and gives you the opportunity to include some of these commands in your own scripts, especially if you're an infrastructure professional or a system administrator. However, as part of your standard Windows 10 thin client build, you have the ability to customize your environment by using the Tenzig Uwf Wizard. This wizard enables you to configure the UWF by using the GUI interface, but offers a whole lot more besides. It allows you to set up custom shells, gives you the ability to enable or disable certain screen experiences, such as welcome screen animations, lock and boot options, and even fine-tune welcome screen content. It also gives you greater control over how your users can interact with the OS and any specific application-related keyboard shortcuts. We talked about the Tenzig UWF Wizard in a previous how-to video, so we've placed a link to it in the description below and highly recommend that you take a look at that one also, especially if you prefer to configure your Tenzig clients via the GUI instead. So what can the UWF do for our Windows thin clients? You may be aware that the UWF is part of Windows 10 and later versions of the OS, and was designed to provide a clean experience for thin clients and workspaces that have frequent guests like school, library, or hotel computers. Guests can work, change settings, and install software. After the device reboots, the next guest receives a clean experience. It increases security and reliability for kiosks, IoT embedded devices, or other devices where new apps are not expected to be frequently added. A big part of the UWF is the ability to store data wherever we want. This is called the overlay and can either be in RAM or on physical disk on our Windows 10 thin clients. If we choose to store the virtual overlay in RAM, then this is cleared during a reboot and has the benefit of being able to reduce the wear on write-sensitive media like solid-state drives. It's just worth noting that if you decide on a RAM overlay for your temporary writes, you might also need to budget for some extra memory for the system. If the OS requires 2 GB of RAM, for example, and your device has 4 GB installed, then set the maximum size of the overlay to 2 GB or less. We recommend enabling UWF on a test device, installing the necessary apps and putting the device through its paces with usage simulations before you release it into the live environment en masse. We only suggest this because if you push a limited amount of RAM to its limits, you really want to be sure the devices can handle it. Not just now, but in months or years to come. Remember, oftentimes, your company doesn't know what loads it might want to place on your IT infrastructure in order to meet its demands, so you, as part of the infrastructure team, need to be one step ahead. If you choose to store the virtual overlay on disk, on the other hand, then it's stored in a temporary location on the drive, and by default, the overlay is cleared on reboot. The UWF can offer several layers of protection for your local media. The ones we're concerned with in this guide are filters and volume protection. They allow us to protect the media either fully or in part, so we can be selective over what we protect, such as operating system specific locations, antivirus application installations and virus definitions, for example. If we want to at some point apply Microsoft updates in full, then we can put the device in servicing mode for a specific period of time. This will apply all our changes, successfully rebooting the device several times if needed, and then disable servicing mode when complete. This puts the device back in a protected, secure and filtered state again, ready for normal operation. During release build of Windows 10 IoT LTSC/LTSB 2021, UWF servicing mode functionality was disrupted, and Microsoft have subsequently issued a Windows KB hotfix to remedy this as of June 2nd, 2022. To download this hotfix, head over to the Microsoft Update Catalog at www.catalog.update.microsoft.com and search for the KB 5014023, and you'll see a list of updates that you can choose for download. In our example, we're running a 64-bit release of Windows 10 LTSB, so we scroll to the bottom of the list and click the download link for that particular update. Once downloaded, you need to apply this to any LTSB 2021 release to ensure UWF application stability and full functionality. For the purpose of this video, we've already downloaded and installed the update ready for the demonstration. There are two ways you can control the state of the UWF on a 10-zig Windows thin client. The first method is by using either of the green or red UWF icons on the thin client desktop. If we double-click on the red circle icon to enable the UWF, then we are presented with a confirmation dialog and a reboot message. You need to acknowledge both of these, and then the 10-zig Windows 10 thin client will reboot, protect your default drive C, and filtering will be switched on. Disabling the UWF follows the same process, but by clicking the green circle icon instead. We won't reboot just yet, as we want to talk about using the command prompt to control the UWF. If we open a DOS window, type in UWF mgr and press enter, then we'll see a list of command parameters and some examples at the bottom of the screen on how to use them. One of the options is get-config. So if we type UWF mgr space get-config and press enter, we can see the current session settings status of the UWF. And if we scroll further down the listing, we see the next session settings. The current session settings show us what the UWF environment looks like as it is right now. If we were to make any changes to the state of the UWF while still inside this Windows session and then rerun the get config command again, we'd see those changes under the next session status heading, ready to be applied during a reboot. Now, because we double-clicked the Tenzig Enable UWF icon earlier and mentioned that it would switch the filter on and protect the drives, let's look at the current and next session settings and do a quick comparison between the two. If we look at current session, filter settings, you'll notice that the filter state is off. Let's scroll down to the next session settings again and see what filter settings and volume settings look like after the next reboot. Under filter settings again, we can see that the filter state will be switched on. And further down under volume settings, we can also see that volume state should be set to protected. Let's go back to the reboot message we received earlier, click OK to restart the Tenzig Thin client, and then take a look at what the UWF state shows us once the device has rebooted and logged back in. Once the Thin client has rebooted, if we open the DOS window again and run uwf get config, we can see straight away that the current session settings have changed. Under filter settings, we can see the filter state is now on, and further down, the volume state under volume settings is now showing protected, just as we expected them to be. Now, before we move on to the next section and talk about UWF and Windows updates, let's change one more UWF setting to demonstrate drive protection and filtering working together. This involves creating a new folder on our C drive, but before we do that, we have to disable the filter first and then reboot the Tenzig Thin client. We have to do this because any changes made whilst the filter is enabled will obviously be lost and discarded once the machine reboots. So remember, any changes you make to your devices will only be permanent if the UWF filter state is showing off in the current session settings, or you're only making changes inside a folder that is excluded from protection. If we type in the command uwf space filter space disable and then press enter, you should see the message Unified Write Filter will be disabled after system restart. Let's restart the Thin client and wait for it to boot back up again. Now that the device has booted up and logged in, we're going to create a folder on the C drive called temp, and then we'll filter it through the UWF by creating a file exclusion. We're going to do this so that when we write to it in the future, the UWF will filter it out of its protection and allow us to do whatever we want to it. This will enable us to read and write content from and to it, and even let us remove and then recreate the temp folder time after time. Let's create the folder by typing md space c:\temp and pressing enter. Now we need to filter it out from the UWF protection by typing in uwf space file space add exclusion and then typing the folder name c:\temp and pressing enter. You should see the message the file/folder folder name will be excluded from the protection after UWF is enabled. We need to enable the filter again now, just so the whole drive is protected and only c:\temp is excluded when it boots back up. Let's restart the Thin client once more, wait for it to boot back up again, and see what our current session settings look like again. Inside the DOS window, if I type in uwf get config and enter, we can see that the filter is on, but further down, we can now see that our folder named temp on C is being excluded from protection, which is good. as we'll use this later when we demonstrate one of our own update deployments from the Tenzig Manager. Okay, we're back. What did you think of that, Kev?
It was excellent, Jace. I really like a couple of the examples that you gave. Specifically the best practices with regards to the RAM and disk provisioning. These are really important. Particularly where using that UWF overlays you mentioned, where you need to take into account common application usage and pushing these out to POC users, because really no two use cases are the same, and they can vary sort of dependent on varying levels of RAM or storage. So that is highly important to call out. And then that Windows update topic, the Windows update topic that you called out as well. These are ever prominent, and you sort of touched on the batch mode or individual updates. Maybe you could just explain, if you wouldn't mind, in terms of how you can apply specific updates that you might specify as opposed to the batch mode that you gave an example of.
Yeah, sure. So by default, when you get your device, take it out the box and plug it in. If it's on the network, it's going to then go and start doing its automatic updates as it's kind of designed to do. So when you first take your Tenzig device out the box, you need to boot it up without the network cable plugged in, and you need to log in as the administrator of the machine, and then disable automatic updates inside the local group policy editor. Then Windows will only carry out updates when you action them manually or deploy them via, say, Tenzig Manager. And it's quite interesting you've asked that, because there's an actual piece in the next video that shows you how to do that. So that's quite relative.
Fantastic.
So that's quite cool.
Yeah, that's great that you've included that then, because like you say, that is a commonly requested question. So that would be great for the audience to be able to see that in the next video. I've just got one other question on this section, if we can, before we proceed with that. And again, sure. You touched on the fact that overlays can either be in RAM or disk, and we've heard about persistent overlays. Perhaps you could just sort of take a moment to just explain what that is exactly.
Yeah, sure. So when you enable this setting, so when you make your overlay persistent, the UWF will allocate extra free space on your drives so that users can then store data for longer. And as the name mentions, make it persistent. This is useful, really, as they may need to reboot the device several times during a use session, but still have that data available following these reboots.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah, that explains that very well then. Thanks, Jason. So I think we're ready to proceed to the next video. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. So, but before we start the second video, we'd just like to ask you our next poll question, if that's okay, Michelle.
Absolutely. It's an easy one, and I'm just going to sneak in here with a little bit of a marketing question for everybody. Would love to know, how did you hear about today's webcast? Very curious to hear if you guys are finding out about these webcasts via email or via social media. I know other is a relatively broad category, but there's several other ways you could have heard about it. So those are the two I'm particularly interested in. If you guys wouldn't mind filling that out real quick, and then we can share the results. So thank you. Yeah, we're getting some answers here. Oh, wow. Okay. Told you it was an easy question. All right, I'm going to close that one down and share the results. Look at that. Fantastic. 87% of you guys heard about us through email, 7%
email's
social
still doing
media.
its job.
Right? And the other 7%.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a good thing to know, Kevin, that we're not harassing people with our email blasts, that people appreciate them and want to come and see the webcast.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thanks, you guys, for doing that. I'm going to go ahead and close that one out, and then you guys can carry on. Thank you.
Okay, we're back. In this second video, as promised, we're going to talk about UWF servicing mode. We'll be covering the following topics. What happens to Windows updates during UWF servicing mode? We'll talk about the UWF screensaver and UAC. We'll take a hotfix inventory of the machine and then download a Windows hotfix. And then to finish off in this video clip, we'll build a Tenzig Manager package and deploy it to our endpoints via the Tenzig Manager console. Well, let's just load that up for you. At the start of this video, we mentioned the use of servicing mode within the UWF to carry out Windows updates on your protected Tenzig Windows thin clients automatically. In this section, we'll show you how to create an inventory of your already installed Windows hotfixes and then set your device in servicing mode, ready for Windows updates to be deployed automatically. We'll also show you an end-to-end servicing mode update and also explain the UWF states as it goes through them and what's actually happening before, during, and after the update process. With regards to Windows updates, we might want to have tighter control over these in the future and even prevent Windows from installing any at all, except ones that we specifically require due to either software security or stability issues that might potentially compromise your devices and ultimately your organization. Your devices might run in environments that only need to be updated in exceptional circumstances. For example, hospitals, military installations, and even retail establishments, where your estate might have several thousand Office thin client devices and shop floor EPOS equipment installed. Let's go into the GPO and set the Configure Automatic Update setting so that it only applies Windows updates when we want changes and not automatically. Go to the Windows Start menu, click Run, type in gpedit.msc and press Enter. Inside the Local Group Policy Editor, we need to navigate to Local Computer Policy, Administrative Templates, Windows Components, and finally click the Windows Update item in the left-hand menu. We need to double-click on the setting named Configure Automatic Updates and then change its value to Disabled by clicking the associated radio button. Once we're happy, we click OK and just check that the setting is disabled and just close the editor. Remember, before we make any amendments to the Tenzig Windows 10 thin clients, we must make sure that the Uwf filter is switched off so we can save any changes even inside the GPO or registry, as ultimately all changes go to disk. Just before we move on, let's open up Windows Settings and see what Windows Update looks like now that we've made that GPO change. If we click the Start menu again, PC Settings, and Update and Security, we can see that some settings are managed by your organization. And if we click View Configured Update Policies below, we can see on the next screen that we have a policy set to disable automatic updates. Back inside the command window, if we type in the command uwf mgr get-config again, you'll notice a service settings heading with a servicing state currently set to off. If we type in the command uwf mgr servicing enable and press enter, this will put the Tenzig Windows 10 thin client in a state that allows a currently protected device to receive updates automatically. It does this by switching off the write filter, applying all missing, critical and security updates, and then switching the filter back on again. Following successful installation of updates, the device will be placed back in a secure state, protecting the drive again from being written to. Once you run this command, you'll see a message, Unified Write Filter Servicing Mode is enabled on next boot. Notice that a security and maintenance notification also appears in the bottom right of the screen. If we click the notification area, we can see the message and it tells us that we need to restart the computer in order to turn off user account control or UAC. This isn't something to be worried about, as switching servicing mode on, like we just did a moment ago, means that UAC is temporarily disabled, as Windows needs to be able to freely update behind the scenes without user acceptance or interaction. Before we restart the 10zig Thin client and watch it go through a servicing mode update cycle, we'll show you how to take a snapshot inventory of hotfixes that have already been applied to your device. We can then run a full update using servicing mode, and once it's finished, find out which ones are our newest hotfixes. This is very useful if, for example, Windows wants to apply 6 new updates, but you only deem 1 or 2 of them absolutely necessary for your Thin clients. You can then manually download these updates from the previously mentioned Microsoft Update Catalog, create your own 10zig Manager installer package, and distribute it, so it coincides with your deployment schedule. You can take an inventory in several ways, but we'll show you 2 commands in this video that we think are really useful, as you can redirect the output to a text file for use later on. Inside our command window, if we type in system info and press enter, you'll see a summary of hardware and OS inventory listed on screen. And further down the screen, you'll see a list of installed updates under the heading of hotfixes. These are KB articles that you can search the Microsoft Update Catalog for and download for your own use, as we just mentioned. If we run the command again, but this time add space greater than symbol, space, c:\temp, /hotfix.txt and press enter, you can see that a file was created in c:\temp, and if we type this file, you can see the results from that command that we can then use to compare against later if we wish. Whilst we're still in the command window, if we type in wmic space QFE and press enter, then a wmic command is invoked that will query Quick Fix Engineering or QFE data and display similar results as the system info one. Now we're ready to run a live servicing mode update and see what happens to our 10zig Windows 10 Thin client. Remember, we already enabled servicing mode earlier, so all we need to do now is restart the device and see what happens. You'll notice that the Thin client device reboots twice in succession within about 30 seconds and then boots up, displaying the UWF servicing lock screen. On this second restart, the device automatically signs into the servicing account and starts the servicing process. The default servicing account that is automatically created and used for servicing is named UWF Servicing, as you probably guessed from the lock screen. One thing to make sure of is that you don't have a user account that shares the same name as UWF Servicing on your device before starting UWF Servicing mode. Once servicing has started, no user interaction is required. However, the system may restart if required by the Windows updates that are installing. If a restart is required, the system will re-enter servicing mode on restart and continue until all updates have been installed. While servicing is underway, the UWF Servicing SCR.SCR screensaver displays on the device. The UWF Servicing SCR.SCR screensaver that is included with Windows 10 Enterprise is a standard Windows screensaver and can be replaced by a custom OEM screensaver if required. When Windows Update servicing is finished, the system will disable UWF servicing and restart the system with UWF protection enabled, and all file and registry exclusions restored to their original pre-servicing state. Be aware that during UWF servicing in Windows 10 Enterprise, Windows Update automatically accepts all Microsoft software license terms. If Windows Updates cannot be installed or return an error, servicing will be disabled and the system will restart with UWF protection re-enabled and all file and registry exclusions restored to their original pre-servicing state. Now we've successfully run a servicing mode update, let's take another Hotfix inventory check and see which new updates were installed. Again, inside the command window, if we run the wmic qfe command again, then we'll get the list of recent updates and also what date they were installed on. In this new list, notice we now have KB5016592 installed, which wasn't here previously. Before we move on to show you how to build your own Windows Update packages using the Tenzig Manager, we'll just show you where your Windows updates actually get installed, whether you install them manually or let Windows 10 automatically handle the update process. If we navigate to C:/Windows/software distribution/download, we can see a bunch of folders inside. These folders are where Windows installers are deployed to and unpacked, ready for installation. If we open one up, you'll notice they have names that are relative to the particular knowledge base article that you see inside the Windows Updates MMC. Now, we're ready to create our own individual knowledge base installer using Tenzig Manager's own built-in package manager. This is particularly useful if you need to have tighter control, like we mentioned earlier, and rigorously test any updates in your labs prior to releasing them into the live environment. The KB installer we'll be downloading is KB5016616. So let's head over to the Microsoft Update Catalog that we mentioned earlier and download the one that is specific to our Tenzig 6010Q. We need to navigate to catalog.update.microsoft.com to begin with, and then key in our KB article number in the search box and click Search. If we click the Products column heading, we can sort the list by specific OS platform. The one we want is for Windows 10, and more specifically for LTSB, 21H2 and x64 processors, as this is what our Tenzig 6010Q build is based on. Once we've found it in the list, we need to click the download button on the right, and then click the link in the pop-up box, and just wait for the update to land in our Downloads folder. Now, we'll open Tenzig Manager and create a custom package that will deploy and install onto our Windows 10 6010Q. Once inside the Manager, click the Manage Windows Update Packages icon in the top menu and the Package Manager dialog will open up. Click the plus icon to add a new package, click Next, and then key in the name of the update. I'm going to give it something meaningful, so the name of the KB update would be a good idea, and also if it's specific to a certain build of machine. So we'll key in KB5016616-21H2-6010Q, and then click Next. Now, we need to specify the installer we wish to deploy. So if I click the three dots or kebab menu, then I can browse to my installer location, which is my local downloads folder. We can see the installer in there, so I just need to highlight it, click Open, and then key in my command line parameters that will execute on your Tenzig Windows client once the package has been deployed to the endpoint. Now, we want the Windows Update standalone installer to launch this KB once it's ready for installation. So we're going to call wusser.exe and then the name of our installer file. Inside the package manager, we can parameterize the file name by using the variable update_file inside less than and greater than symbols. This is really useful as it not only relates to the actual installer file name when it's on the Tenzig client, but also its location. I'll explain why this is important in just a moment. To finish off the command line execution string, we're going to add /quiet. This will tell WUSA that we don't want the installer dialog to interact with the user of the machine when it runs. We're going to tick the box named Copy and Execute from Local Temp folder, as this will then deploy to the endpoint in a subfolder of Windows Temp. The alternative is to untick this and the package will be installed from its current location on your Tenzig Manager server's image store location. If you wanted to pre-deploy your packages in advance of installation date and space wasn't an issue on your client endpoint, then you'd want to install from the local client temp location. That way, you know when installation day comes around, all your units have the installer package sat there waiting, and all you have to do then is just run the update commands to launch the installer. For the purpose of the demonstration, we'll be installing and running from temp. Just one more thing about installing from the temp folder is that if your installation fails for some reason, then the installer folder is left behind, giving you the option to install it manually if you wish. However, if the installation is successful, then Tenzig Manager will housekeep and remove the folder and its contents. This is a good thing because you might be short on space and need to reclaim it. If you tick the box labelled Wait for process to complete before returning, then it will do exactly that, wait. So if you have a deployment that takes a few minutes per device, and you have a lot of clients being updated concurrently and a short window of deployment, you might want to untick this box. This will just send the deployment package to the client, start the execution process, and then return back to your Tenzig Manager, ready to start deployment to the next client in the thread. One thing you have to remember is that if you want the fastest execution, then you'll need to tick Copy and Execute from Temp to do this. Again, for the purpose of the demo, we're going to wait for the installer process to finish and return any state updates to the Manager console. Before we move on, you have the option to reboot the client after execution, or you can include this in the command line parameters and also inside any batch scripts that you might want to deploy using Tenzig Manager. So you can see we have total flexibility, which is great. I'm going to leave this unticked as I want to use the device after deployment has completed. If we click Next, then we're asked about which user we want to run the installer under. You can choose a specific local user account, as logged on user, or local system account. If you select local system account, then you have administrator rights to execute with. The system account normally doesn't interact with the desktop, so if you wanted to, let's say run the installer as local system and also pop up a message box, then you'll have to tell Windows that you want the Tenzig agent to be able to do this. To enable this feature, we need to go into Services, scroll down to the XTC agent service, right-click, select Properties, and then click on the tab marked Log On. In there, you have to tick Allow Service to interact with desktop, and then click OK. If we go back to our installer and click Next, then we have the option to disable and then re-enable the UWF following any deployment changes. You need to be aware that if you deploy with these options set, that your device has to reboot twice in order to apply your changes and manage the UWF successfully. Unless your deployments are an emergency fix that need to go out to devices immediately, then it's best practice to run your deployments in a dedicated service maintenance window outside of normal business operating hours. We're going to switch these two on and see what happens to the device before, during, and after our deployment has completed. To save and build our deployment package, we just click Next and then Finish. Once built, we can see the newly created package in the list. Well done, you've just built your first Tenzig Windows installer package. Now all we need to do is deploy it to our Windows 10 6010Q. Before we deploy this KB hotfix to our Windows 10 client, we first need to uninstall it because Windows Update has already applied it and redeployment will most likely fail. It's always best to manually uninstall anything if you're testing deployment of individual updates. We'll show you how to do this now. Click on the Start menu, Run, and inside the Run box type in appwiz.cpl and press Enter. You should see the Programs and Features screen appear from within the control panel. Click on View Installed Updates in the left panel and highlight the update KB5016616 and then click Uninstall above it. Answer yes to the uninstall question and just wait until the update has been removed successfully. Remember earlier when we mentioned that you need to disable the Uwf filter if you're making any permanent changes to the drive? Well, this would be one of those times. If the filter was enabled now and we decided to uninstall this KB update, it would appear to have been removed. However, during the reboot process, that removal would be discarded and your update will still be installed. You'll most likely be asked to restart the device once this is completed, so we'll click Restart now as we need it to be fully removed before we can carry out our own Tenzig Manager deployment. Now, it's time to reinstall that KB hotfix with the Tenzig Manager. Once the device is rebooted, inside the Tenzig Manager console, we need to right-click on the thin client that we want to deploy to, select Windows Client Administration, Updates, and then Execute Update. When we see the selection dialog box appear, we need to highlight the package we want to deploy and click OK. You'll be asked if you're sure you want to deploy to this thin client, so click OK. Because we set the update package to disable and then enable Uwf filtering and protection during the build process, you'll notice that the first thing that Tenzig Manager does is just that. It starts by informing us that the job is disabling write protection and rebooting the client. Once the client is booted back up again, Tenzig Manager checks for the condition of the Uwf and then resumes the upgrade that we want installing. This is shown by the message Running Update in the Thin Client Jobs Audit Trail. Now, once the installer has succeeded on the endpoint, we get the next status update informing us that Tenzig Manager is enabling write protection again and rebooting. Tenzig Manager picks up the status changes of the Uwf and then finally reports success of our installation package inside the console window. This KB installer package is about 700 meg and takes quite a while to deploy and install. So we've pushed things along a bit quicker just to prove the process of Tenzig Manager installing the hotfix and manipulating the Uwf successfully. Hi.
Hi, Jason. Hey,
Hi,
Kevin.
Jason.
Hi. Got me back, yeah?
Yeah, we got you back.
Cool, cool. I think there's a tiny piece missing off the end of there, I think, where we actually saw it update eventually. But that was after the reboot process. So it was going to then, after that point, it would have re-enabled the UWF behind the scenes and just brought the device back up. But we'll make sure that's all intact, basically, for when we share it back out with everybody, okay?
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
So have you got any questions on that one, Kev?
I do have a few, and yeah, just conscious of time, so I think I'll just sort of cherry pick the one that hopefully is most prominent with the audience, and that's really when you're downloading and installing the updates on the Tenzig devices. Ultimately, what can you do to both see that you're running low on drive space and also from a sort of management perspective, ultimately look to free up any redundant space?
Well, you've got a couple of options. The obvious one is to upgrade your local storage. So if you're running a 32 gig DOM, look at upgrading to a 64 gig DISCOM module, or you can run some manual housekeeping yourself. There are some Windows DISM commands that will free up space on your devices by reducing the size of the WinSXS folder. This works by uninstalling and deleting packages that have been replaced with newer versions. But you can also create your own scheduled tasks to do this if you like, or by placing them inside your deployment scripts to do the housekeeping on the machines prior to deployment of any substantial updates.
That's awesome, thanks. And yeah, I love the example that you gave of them, ultimately packaging those Windows updates through the Tenzig manager. So hopefully that topic was really sort of relevant and useful for the audience. So back to you then, Jason. I think we've got another poll question coming up, haven't we?
We sure have, yeah. Hold on one second. Okay, so this is the final? Yeah, it's our final poll question. So can we just load that up, please, Michelle?
Fantastic, yes. I'll keep this one quick since we're very short on time, and I think everybody, we have our entire audience has been on throughout the entire event, so they probably want to see the next video. So real quick, would you like to discuss receiving a demo device to test in your own environment? Yes, no, later. Please know that when you complete this information, we're not automatically going to send you a demo device. It's just, hey, do you want to talk about it? Are you interested in the program? And I'll just get those responses real quick here and close it out since we're so short on time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out. Jason, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Super, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so in this final video, we talk about custom kiosk shells. We'll mention the Tenzig application, create custom shell, and how its associated ini file works. We'll show you how to create your own custom package using Tenzig Manager again. Then we'll deploy this package and see the Tenzig Thin Client transform from an open admin desktop, completely wide open, and transformed into a securely locked down Thin Client user running a Microsoft AVD client. Now, if you can stay to the end, everybody, that'd be fantastic. It's only going to be 10 minutes, but it's super important and got a really good amount of content in there. Remember, at the start of this video, we talked about creating an installer package that would put your devices into a secure kiosk mode, running a custom shell. Creating a custom shell gives us the ability to launch our user's desktop to run a single application at login so that our end users only get access to what they need and nothing more. It also gives your system engineers and administrators a more controlled and secure desktop environment to set up and manage. It's also quite easily maintained should you need to change the applications your users need access to in the future. We mentioned using Tenzig's Uwf Wizard to set up custom shells at the beginning and pointed you to a video in the description below. It's also worth mentioning that you can create single application custom kiosk shells by using Microsoft Endpoint Manager to deploy policies en masse to your Thin Client estate too. Again, as usual, we have a how-to video on YouTube and the Tenzig website that explains how to achieve this, and the link to this is also in the description below. Tenzig saw an opportunity arise recently and developed a couple of Windows console applications that can be deployed via Tenzig Manager to place your Windows Thin clients in or out of secure kiosk mode. The installer package deploys a single executable and an accompanying ini file that contains the necessary registry value data to enable complete setup of any single application custom kiosk shell that you wish. In this section, we'll show you how to build your Tenzig Manager package to do this, and also run through the contents of the ini file and show you several examples of VDI connection apps that you can build using this simple but powerful tool. Let's start like we did before and create our Tenzig Manager installer. Inside the Tenzig Manager, I'm going to open the Package Manager and create a package named Tenzig Create User Kiosk Shell and click Next. My Tenzig update file is sitting in c:temp named createcustomshell.exe. So let's navigate to that location, highlight it and click Open. The command line parameter is just going to run createcustomshell.exe once it's deployed to the endpoint. So we'll just copy and paste this into that box. We want to copy and execute from temp and also wait for the process to finish, as it only takes less than a minute to complete. So we'll tick these two boxes. We click Next and Next again, and then tick the UWF boxes like we did before. Click Next and then Finish. We can see the package in the list of updates now, so that's good. Okay, so we're sending out executable createcustomshell.exe as part of the process to our Tenzig client. But what about the ini file that needs to go with it to the same location? If we navigate to c:/image store and win updates, you'll notice that we have a folder called Tenzig Create User Kiosk Shell. The Tenzig Manager creates this as part of the build process once we click Finish on creating the package. If we look inside this folder, you can see our executable. Because we specified to run this app from the temp folder, it will be deployed to c:/windows/temp, and then inside a temporary hash folder, just for this instance. But we want the Tenzig Manager installer to send down the ini file to the same temp location on our client, so that our executable can open it up and then use the parameters to build our client custom shell. Well, one cool feature of Tenzig Manager allows you to paste any files inside your Win Updates folder, and these will then automatically be transferred along with your update file to the client Windows temp hash folder ready for installation. My ini file is also in c:/temp on the Tenzig Manager server. So I just copy it from there and then paste it into the Tenzig Create User Kiosk Shell folder. Awesome. Before we deploy our package to the Tenzig 6010Q, I'll just show you what's inside the ini file and how it can be customized to configure your own Tenzig endpoints. If I double-click the ini file, createcustomshell.ini, then it will open inside Notepad and we can take a look at what we can configure. We have just one section in here named Kiosk inside square brackets, and beneath that we have some keys. These keys will be read by the application and then saved to the registry hive on your Tenzig Windows thin clients, ready for next reboot and activation of your custom shell. Kiosk Application To Run inside Shell is where you add the location of your Kiosk single application that will be launched automatically on your Tenzig Windows thin client once it boots up each time. This example here is going to launch Microsoft's AVD client on our 6010Q. But if you look further down the list, you'll notice that we have two other examples here, namely the Citrix Workspace app and VMware Horizon client. Just one thing to point out, any line inside the ini file that starts with a semicolon is a comment and will be ignored by the application. So make sure you uncomment any line you need to be processed and comment out any that you don't. Let's move on to the last required key, default action when Kiosk app is closed. This key tells the app how we want our custom shell to behave if our users close the application, either by accident or on purpose. We have four options available to us: reboot the client, restart the shell, shut down the client completely, or do nothing and just leave the shell closed. This isn't ideal, as your users won't be able to relaunch it and will have to restart the client anyway. In our example, we just want to restart the shell, so we make sure that line is not commented out so the application can see what registry changes it needs to make. Just before we run the upgrade on the Tenzig device, just a recap of the ini file layout. If you wanted to send this package to your thin clients to configure your endpoint to launch a VMware Horizon client inside your shell, just comment out everything else that isn't in the VMware section. Make sure your section name Kiosk and your keys, Kiosk Application To Run inside shell, and default action when Kiosk app is closed are all uncommented and have meaningful values, paying special attention to the key that needs your Horizon client location to be specified. Then you just save the ini file and you're all set to run the Tenzig Create User Kiosk shell package on your Windows thin client. Just one more thing to mention before we deploy. This application will only change the shell for the built-in thin client user at present, and will also change its login behavior, so that when it reboots, it will automatically log in as the thin client user account. Let's go back into Tenzig Manager and also VNC onto the Tenzig client at the same time, so we can see what's happening on both the Tenzig Manager during deployment and also on the Tenzig endpoint. I need to right-click my Tenzig client again and select Windows Client Administration, Updates, Execute Update, highlight the package Tenzig Create User Kiosk Shell, and click OK twice. Again, because my device has UWF enabled, the first thing that happens is Tenzig Manager disables protection so we can write to the client drives. Now, the 6010 queue is rebooting again, so we'll just wait for it to come back up. Once it's rebooted and logged back in, we can see that Tenzig Manager resumes the deployment, and shortly after it begins again, you can see a message on the client stating that you're about to be signed out and the device will reboot. Notice that the message also mentions that it's creating a user kiosk shell and details of our AVD client, which is good. If we look at the Tenzig Manager package status again, you'll see that it's enabling UWF protection on the client again, and then getting ready to reboot the device to seal the changes in. Now that the client is rebooted, notice that the user is now thin client user. And if we wait just a few moments longer, the default shell is now our single AVD client application, which is just as we expected. And if I click my support desktop and sign in, I'm successfully logged into my Windows VDI. Remember earlier when we specified inside our ini file to restart the shell if our user closed it? Well, let's just test that now. If I close the application window and just wait a few moments, it restarts again. All as planned. This concludes today's session, where we talked about keeping your Tenzig Windows thin client securely updated, focusing in particular on Windows updates and Microsoft's Unified Write Filter, otherwise known as the UWF. We showed you how to set up the UWF to be able to manage bulk updates using servicing mode, and also how to apply individual ones, using methods to unlock the local drives for update and then locking them again following successful maintenance. We took you through the steps to make sure you're running your Windows updates the way you want to, giving you full control of what to apply and how and when to apply them. We finished off by showing you how to create your own installer package within Tenzig Manager to deploy Tenzig's Create Custom Shell executable that put the device into Windows 10 Secure Kiosk mode for our thin client user and have it auto log on and launch the AVD client as a single shell application. I hope you enjoyed the session, and remember, if you have any questions regarding this or related topics, then please contact your Tenzig team or visit the website at www.tenzig.com. Thank you very much and have a great day. Hello.
Hi, Jason.
Hi. Listen, everyone, thanks so much for staying. Hopefully you found it, useful and very informative. So I'm glad that most people stayed, which is fantastic. Thank you. Have you got any questions on that last video, Kev? Any quick ones?
I did, funnily, but you actually covered it anyway. So, we always get a lot of questions about the shell launcher, and the fact that you gave examples in there of how to configure not just for the AVD client, but also Citrix and VMware. And I think, I'm right in saying that you've created similar content on even the Tenzig YouTube channel, haven't you, in terms of any other solutions, even like, for example, launching a kiosk-based browser?
Yes. Yeah, there's a complete section there. We've got, so if you head over to the Tenzig YouTube channel and to the website, you can find plenty of examples that you just mentioned then, and I did in the previous video, and loads more cool content in there besides.
That's great. And I think the only thing to close it off is just, I think that's probably the first time publicly we've given a demonstration of how to enable that shell launcher through the manager. And that's, an ever important question. And I think consistently through the videos that you've covered, being able to demonstrate all of these things with the servicing mode and the shell launcher through the Tenzig manager is ever important and critical as the endpoints are often remote to the administrator. So fantastic demos, and awesome job, Jason. Thank you. And hopefully the audience really enjoyed that.
Yeah, so I'll just close out if that's okay, everybody. So I hope that gave you an understanding of how you can secure and manage your Tenzig Windows 10 devices using UWF and Windows updates. And also, like Kevin just mentioned, leveraging Microsoft's Shell Launcher to create a custom secure kiosk environment. So thanks very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And once again, thanks to Kevin for joining along with me and sharing it. And also for Tenzig's very own Michelle. And to Tenzig's very own Michelle for hosting it.
Yeah, just a couple quick things I'll close out as well. There's just one or two questions that we don't have time to get to, but we will get to you by the beginning of next week. Again, a few people did ask, can I have links? Can I have copies of the video? Absolutely. I'm hoping to get that everything out to everybody by the end of this week. And you can find the videos yourself on YouTube channel for Tenzig, as well as our video gallery on tenzig.com, and we're on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. A tremendous amount of amazing content packed into one solid hour. I thought it was great. Yes. So, and thank you to everybody that stuck with us. Really, everybody that hopped on board early on in the beginning of the hour are still here. So thank you, and we hope to see you soon. Kevin, anything else you want to mention before we say goodbye?
Just to echo both of your comments, really. Thank you again for everybody's participation. Apologies it overran very slightly, but awesome job both. So thanks again.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time here for another great Tenzig demo webinar. Take care. Ciao.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.